This is part 6 of the Craftsman King Seeley 150 drill press rebuild series. If you haven't seen part 5, click the link at the top of the screen. In this video, we will be polishing the column. Hello everyone, I'm Jeff and welcome to my shop. We got a lot to cover, so let's get to it. For polishing columns, I like to use what I call and what other people have called the poor man's lathe, which is basically just a threaded rod with a drill. And I'm going to go through some of the components you see here on this table. First, we've got 4 2-inch casters that I've got mounted to a board. Then we've got a 5/16 by 18 threaded rod. We've got 2 tapered wooden furniture legs, 4 5/16 nuts, 2 flat washers, an electric drill, and then we've got an 80 grit flap wheel, and then dry sandpaper, 80, 100, 150, 220, and 320. Wet sandpaper, 400, 600, 800, and 1000. And then we've got some Mother's mag and aluminum polish, a ShamWow, and paste wax. So we're going to start off this with the flap wheel. So this is an 80 grit flap wheel, and this is just going to remove most of the surface rust and whatever else is left on this column after we've already derusted it and cleaned it in simple green. And I'm just running the flap wheel with an angle grinder all the way down the column, and then I'll come back up. And I'm going to be doing this with just about everything. I'll make 2 passes, one all the way down the column and then one all the way back up. And I'm trying to stay relatively consistent as I move as far as speed and pressure. You can see all that rust coming off of there. We'll just speed this up. And once we're done with this flap wheel, then we're going to move to the dry sand. And for dry sanding, you can do this by hand. I'm going to use an orbital sander, but you could just do it with regular sandpaper just like we will with the wet sand. But I've found that it's a little easier with the orbital. So this is 80 grit sandpaper. We used an 80 grit flap wheel, and now we're using 80 grit sandpaper. And then we'll progress each grit, making 2 passes. Go with the 100. So I've got this sped up to 1,000 times the normal speed. So I'm actually moving kind of slow in this process, and I'm not applying a whole lot of pressure. And if you're not familiar with sanding, basically what we're trying to do with each grit of sandpaper is remove the previous grit's scratches. And as we go up, you'll see that the column is getting cleaner and cleaner and shinier and shinier. Now these columns did not come from Craftsman polished. They all had kind of a satin finish to them. And if that's all you want is a satin finish, then once you get to the 320 grit, you can stop sanding. You're done. You just need to apply a paste wax over the column, and you're ready to move on to whatever's next in the rebuild. But I like to polish my columns, so that's what we will be doing. So this is regular speed now, and you can see how slow I'm actually moving. And we'll turn off the drill here, and you'll see the shine that's on that column at this point. And that is with the 320 grit. So next we're going to wet sand. And for wet sanding, really it's the exact same thing as dry sanding, except you need to rinse between each grit. So the key to wet sanding is keeping the sandpaper and the column wet and rinsing between each grit. So we're going to wet that column first. And this will get messy, that's why I'm wearing a face mask. And we're going to start with that 400 grit. And we're just going to go all the way down and then all the way back up. And what I'll do is I'll go about 10 inches and then I'll re-wet that sandpaper and then pick right back up where I left off. Now, obviously you need to be careful when you're around the casters. You don't get your fingers caught in there, or the sandpaper or the rag or whatever else you're holding. But this process will result in a really nice shine to this column. And when we're done at 1,000 grit, it's got a nice shine to it. It's not quite chrome-like yet, but it's really close. And this is the same method we're going to use to polish just about all the stuff that we're going to polish later on in the metal lathe or even by hand. We usually dry sand and then wet sand, and then we'll apply that mag and aluminum polish to it. Again, remember to rinse between each grit. If you don't rinse between each grit, then you're not doing anything. You're just continuing with the previous grit because all of that sand is still on the column. And this is 1,000 grit here. And this is the normal speed that I'm actually running at. And we'll take a look at that shine after we've rinsed off the column. And we're going to dry it off. I'm getting a drier rag to dry it off. There we go. And look at that shine that's on that column. Now the inside of the column is still going to rust, and I had one viewer recommend that you can get like a liquid, paint that you would paint on with a brush of rust inhibitor that you could coat the inside of the column with, but I've never done that. So this is Mother's Mag and Aluminum Polish. You can get it from all your auto parts stores or off of Amazon. And this stuff is just magic in a can. Obviously the column needs to be clean and dry when you're applying this. And then I like using these ShamWows, but really a microfiber rag or whatever would work just fine as well. And all we're going to do is buff this polish off. So I'm going to actually make a total of 4 passes 2 down and 2 back. And we'll flip that ShamWow over as we do this. And as I go down, I'm kind of feeding the ShamWow to a cleaner spot as I go further down the column. Because that polish will kind of cake up on it. And I am using a good amount of pressure, especially where the caster wheels are, because that polish will kind of cake up on the column there. But this will get you that chrome-like finish as long as the column is not heavily pitted. And there's the shine that it is. Good to go. All right, so we're going to protect that raw metal polished column with some paste wax. So this is Johnson's paste wax, but really any Carbonuba paste wax would work. They don't make this anymore, so finding a can of Johnson's would be really difficult. So we just apply the wax and then we buff it. And this will protect the column for about a year, and then you just need to reapply another coat of wax. And that's going to wrap up this video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please like and subscribe. In the next video, we're going to be wire wheeling a bunch of parts on the grinder and cleaning stuff up in the lathe and continuing with the rebuild. If you have questions or comments, leave them in the comments section. As always, I appreciate the support, and I will see you next time.